Okay, good morning. We now have a fantastic guest who's an outrageously talented man on the other end of the call here. A former NFL player, turned businessman, turned broadcaster, turned dancer. Please, everybody, can you welcome Jason Bell to Journalism and Media Week? So, Jason, can you tell me how you managed to fit all that into your career so far?
I'm just trying to figure out how I made the cut to be on Journalism Week. This is amazing. I mean, we must have been running out of options if I got on here. No, but thank you, everybody, for allowing me to enjoy this time with y'all. Now I'll get to your question.
Okay, no problem. I'm just going to ask you another quick question, and then I'm going to pass on to two of our resident NFL experts who've got some really deep dive stuff to get into with you. But in terms of NFL, obviously we've just had the game recently in London. Do you think this sport is really getting more global now, or are Americans quite happy to keep American football all to themselves?
The NFL is global. It belongs to everyone. That's why we're out here. That's why the NFL has tried to spend as much time and as much effort growing the game out here and having the games here. I believe this audience is something different. I mean, this is a sporting country, so any sport that's here will get a unique experience. And I, as a player, playing here and watching the players and how they feel about being out here, it's completely different than the States. So it's so unique, it's so special, and hopefully we can continue to get more games, maybe a team, maybe a Super Bowl, who knows? But I'll be here for it all.
All right, Jess, my name's Will. First question I've got for you is, what got you into football? Were there any other sports that turned your head over to football? What was the sport for you?
I liked a lot of sports, but I wasn't good at all of them. So I was better at football. So I kind of took that path. And as a kid, I remember watching it, and I was a huge fan. I love track and field. I love basketball. I love baseball. But my skill set was definitely for football. It's such a unique game where you have all these different positions. And if you have a certain talent, you can fit into that position. And it's kind of hard in other sports where kind of everything merges together. I think football is very unique like that. So that's kind of how I got involved in it and stuck with it. And to be honest, I think I love the physical hitting aspect of it more than anything. So that kept me there. Didn't make my mom happy because she was constantly worried about my bones and me knocking out teeth, but everything else was cool.
Hi, I'm Kieran. Nice to meet you, Jason. And you was just talking about there about the positions specifically in NFL, and we see a lot of players in the modern league, moving positions, So did you always want to be a cornerback, or did you want to be, this star quarterback under center making all the headlines?
I always wanted to be a corner for sure, because when I was young, I'm not sure if everybody heard of a guy named Deion Sanders, but he was the best athlete, multi-sport, played baseball professionally also. So he made the position glamorous. So I always wanted to be a corner. I was also a quarterback in high school, but my heart was always playing defense and playing cornerback. It was completely meant for me.
And also, Jason, you won the Pac-10 championship with the UCLA Bruins. How did that feel to win that with your teammates at the college?
It felt great. Whenever you can win anything like that, and especially in college, because you spend so much time with those guys. In the pros, you don't spend as much time with your teammates. But when you're in university, I mean, it really is a brotherhood. So it was great to do that. We kind of turned things around at UCLA when I was there. So it was a great experience. Still friends with a lot of those guys. It was very unique. Very thankful that happened.
And if you don't mind to stick on college football for a second, because the college atmosphere is so different to what we have in the United Kingdom. And you see how big it is for, especially, even some of the bigger colleges to some of the smaller ones. What is the atmosphere like at the college level? Because it seems so intimidating for opposing teams that come and watch you play.
Man, the college level is different. I mean, the stadiums are actually bigger than NFL stadiums. I mean, my first college game, we played at the University of Tennessee, and they had a quarterback named Peyton Manning, who's in the Hall of Fame, and there was 100,000 people. I was 18 years old. I didn't want to walk on that field. It was so intimidating, so loud. The students are so emotional. I mean, you go to some of these campuses in some of these states, and that's all they have, that college team. So the whole city in some places shut down. We played in Ohio against Ohio State, and driving up to the game, everything was closed. I had never seen anything like it. So we knew we were about to lose when I saw that, and we did. But it's unique. I mean, going to school in the States, you learn to love college football because that's what you do.
So moving on to your NFL career now, Jason. How did it feel when you went undrafted? Did it affect your confidence, or did it give you added motivation?
For me, it probably made me play harder and have a longer career, because the reason that happened is I got hurt the year before. The year before, I was ranked probably number 6 corner in the nation, which meant I was a first, second rounder, something like that. But I got hurt and missed the whole year. So in that year, I had to really start to identify who I was and what my beliefs were and the kind of person I would eventually be, because all I had to that point was football. So once I went undrafted, I was in the mindset of it doesn't matter what challenges I face. The fact that I'm back on this field and have an opportunity to play just put me on the field. I can overcome anything. And that was truly what helped the longevity of my career.
So how did it feel when you finally did get that call from the Dallas Cowboys that you were going to be picked up as a UDFA? Was it a feeling of a bit of relief, or it's like, now it's time to prove myself at that level as well?
It was relief, because you're like, I'm going to Dallas. I'm playing for the Cowboys. This is amazing. Everybody knows about them. And so that was a relief. I also knew, because I could pick my team at that point. I had about, I'd say 15, 20 teams that wanted me. When you're undrafted, you get to pick your team. So I picked Dallas. And as soon as I knew I was going there, it was all about the work. At that moment in time, I think that night I went to dinner, the next day, it was all about the grind. It was all about putting in the work, because the one thing I knew that I controlled was the volume and effort that I put into my craft. And I knew I was going to have to outwork everybody every day to even earn a spot on that roster. And that's exactly what happened. I just purely outwilled people, and that's how I ended up making the team.
So obviously, as I mentioned, you started your career on the Dallas Cowboys, but obviously you moved to the Houston Texans next. And was it a special moment to be part of the Houston Texans' first ever season as a franchise?
No, that was really cool. I mean, it was the first game ever in Houston, and the first opponent is the team I just left. So it was a weird moment, because imagine I'm on the sideline with this new team that I had been with for a week. I hardly knew anybody, and I'm playing because they knew I knew the other team's offense. I'm on the field, and I know everybody on the other sideline. So I'm talking to them the whole game, and the ref had to come up to me and tell me, you need to calm down, buddy. This is getting out of control. I know you used to play there, but I'm going to throw a flag on you if you keep this up. And we ended up winning, and it was amazing in the stadium. People had signs up saying, you can lose the rest of the games this year, just win this one. And that's basically what we did.
And while you was in Houston, I think it was that first year, you also won the Ed Block Courage Award. How much of an honor of that was that for you personally?
Huge honor. And for those that don't know what that is, it's one of the only awards that's voted by the team. So your teammates actually vote for this, and it's the comeback player of the year. I broke my arm, missed a couple of games. They had to put I put screws and rods in my arm and played with a titanium cast. Played the rest of the year. Led them in special teams tackles. Had one of my best years. So it people respected that, and it's one of those things that I keep around, because it really represents how my teammates viewed me that year, and that's very special to me.
So obviously, how mentally taxing is it to play in the NFL? Obviously, the average age of an NFL player is around 2 years. So how do you battle the injuries week to week? With it being a week-to-week league, and playing such intense games every single week. How do you deal with that throughout the season? And sort of like measure your body throughout the season.
Yeah, no, it's a tough thing, and the best players I've been around have a process. They have a process of how they prepare themselves mentally and physically. And you stick to that. You try to take care of your body before injuries happen, because inevitably something is going to happen. You're going to play, we call banged up, hurt, injured. So you try to stick to what you do week in and week out to keep your body in tip-top shape. It's your lifestyle off the field. That definitely helps you. I've seen players last a long time because of how they live their life outside of the facility, outside of practice and the games, and that's important. But when you do have an injury, it's all about digging into that mental strength you have when you're on the field. And actually, it's the same. You basically have to engage in that process of getting back on the field like you were an opponent. And you can't let it overwhelm you no matter what setback you have or how long it takes. You just got to take it day by day and understand the body will eventually heal and you will recover.
And obviously you mentioned when you was with the Texans about leading the teams in tackle for loss on special teams. And when most players do get drafted in the latter rounds or UDFAs, they kind of have to ply their trade on special teams, so to say. So how did you find it? Was it kind of you wanted to prove yourself on that first? You knew your spot wasn't guaranteed, so that's where you kind of wanted to shine first?
Yeah, but before I ask that, is that a Minnesota Vikings sweater you got on? Let's get to the bottom of this. Is this true?
It might very well be. And when you said there was 20 teams earlier, I was about to ask, did my Minnesota Vikings ask as one of the 20 teams?
Well, no, they didn't call me, and I'm very upset at that. So, but one of my great friends, Harrison Smith, is the safety there, and he, you probably know who he is, a great dude, very intelligent, one of the best players in the NFL. But back to your question, which I totally forgot what it was because I was distracted by the Vikings jacket. I mean, let's be honest.
I'm sorry. I will choose my clothing better next time.
No, it's cool. I like it. It's all right.
No, it's all right. So what was it like on special teams in Houston? Because obviously you want to be a corner, you kind of want to be a starter, but do you have to prove yourself there first?
Yes. See, the thing about special teams in the NFL is it is a defined role. You have to win in 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. So when you do something really well on special teams, they view you as a starter. There's about 2 or 3 guys that play special teams out of the 11 guys out there that are viewed and valued as starters because of the impact in the game you have. And that's who I was. And even though I played in the nickel and dime defenses, sometimes they wouldn't even want to play me on defense because of my impact on special teams. They would say, we need you out there fresh. We need your legs. That's one of the longest plays in football. Whenever you see the ball kicked, you're sprinting, 30, 40, 50 yards. That doesn't happen on every play in the NFL. So it's something when you're playing special teams, you got a lot of pride. And it's the one unit where you have everybody from offense and defense in the same meeting room. That doesn't happen all the time. So you really get to know a lot of your teammates and bond with them. But that unit is usually full of a lot of tough guys who really want to take it to the opponent and put their body on the line, for the lack of a better way of phrasing it. But you just go out there and for that play, you need to have an impact to help your offense and defense.
And touching on, obviously, you started off and drafted, you kind of made your name on special teams and worked your way into the roster. Is there a current player in the NFL that kind of reminds you of yourself, a player that's kind of come back from adversity and had a very long and sustained career in the NFL?
You know what? There's a lot of players like that. There's not one that kind of, Matthew Slater, who's over at New England, has won multiple Super Bowls. I think as many, 5 or so, maybe even 6, and all on special teams. And Bill Belichick, who we could say is the greatest coach of all time, values him so much in what he does on and off the field. And he came from my college, UCLA, so I've always watched him. But you see a lot of other players where you see them starting maybe year 4 or 5, and you're like, where did they, where were they doing before? And the reason they got on the field and got an opportunity to show their skills on offense and defense is because special teams allow them to stay on the team, on the roster, where they could develop. So the smart players you see, the young ones, that's what they do to develop into what they're going to be on offense and defense. So there's a lot of guys. Every year you see somebody like that.
And from going for what player reminds yourself, what is one player in the modern NFL that you wish you played, against? Is it a receiver you'd love to go one-on-one with? Personally, Justin Jefferson, I'd like to see that matchup myself. But is there one player you wish you could play with as well on your team?
Oh, wow. So I wouldn't want to play against any of the great receivers because then I get embarrassed. I don't want to get embarrassed. I want to make plays out there. So I'm not going to, I don't want to be out there getting thrown around and then embarrassing my mom. But no, I think when I look at receivers, the hardest guys to cover for me were what I called the ones that were competitive at the catch point. And that is Deandre Hopkins. And what I mean by that is no matter from Arizona now, no matter how good you're covering them, they can just outcompete you at the ball. And that was the toughest challenge. So that would be someone I'd like to play against to see if I can prove myself in that battle, because he is so dynamic and difficult. It doesn't matter, where you are on the field and how good you have him covered, he can get you. And who would I want to play with? I'd have to say Tom Brady. And I know it's easy, but it's something when you're around a person that understands every aspect of winning. The season is long and it's challenging. Like any business you can be in, any situation, any group of people, you want somebody with the experience to say, you haven't been here. I'm going to tell you how to get out of this. I'm going to tell you how we're going to go about this. Follow me. That's powerful. I'd like to play with a person like that because it's so much I could learn from his approach. So I would say Tom Brady.
And obviously, you touched on players that you like to play with, but is there one certain coach that you felt you learned a lot from, or you used his knowledge a lot to succeed in the NFL? Is there one certain coach, or is there too many to choose from?
Mike Zimmer, that's in Minnesota right now, and it's because when I was there as a rookie, we had some really good players. A guy named Darren Woodson who taught me a lot about being a professional. He's in the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor. And when we used to be in meetings, the way he would challenge us and teach us the game, it really helped me and impacted me through the rest of my career, because I realized that coaching isn't the same everywhere. You think it is, but it's not. So I understood what I was doing on each part of the field and how my opponent was attacking me because of Mike Zimmer's coaching. So I like the way he challenged us, and I like the way he taught the game.
Yeah. Is there a reason he's called the cornerback whisperer?
Well, yeah, probably because, he worked with Deion Sanders and all those guys before I had got there, and he's a defensive back guy. So when you have a lot of players that you've coached that have a lot of talent and different skill sets of talent, then the next person you see when they come in, you can say, hey, you're like this guy, and this is what made him successful. And as players, all we want is somebody that gives us answers. We all want to get better, but give us answers and actionable steps we can take to get better. And I think Zim, as far as the defensive backs, he provides that.
And what would you say is one teammate that, when you started your career in the NFL, that had a big impact on you, that taught you the ways of how to make an NFL roster and kind of took you under the wing? Was there a certain player that did that? Or was it kind of like, a team effort integrating you into the roster?
Definitely Darren Woodson, that was at the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, and people don't know him, look him up. Just a good man, great player, but great man. And some of the best advice he gave me when I came to Dallas is I was playing really well. Obviously, we talked about being undrafted. And he looked at me and he said, Jay Bill, I need you to understand something. Some of the best advice I've ever gotten. He said, you move and you play like you should have been a first rounder, but you're not. So don't ever think or compare yourself. You're always going to have to outwork everybody. And I see that happen to a lot of players. They come in and they start comparing themselves to other people, and they think that that's going to be all it takes, that it's fair. And it's not. You have to outwork everyone, regardless of what you think your skills are or how you think you're playing, because you never know what the decision makers are thinking. So the one thing you can control is that they look at you and your performance and what you put into it, and they say, we can't get rid of this person. They're too valuable. And Darren Woodson taught me that.
Hi, Jason. You're back with me now, but those were some great questions from Will and Kieran.
I'm not sure I want to be back with you. You don't have a Minnesota jacket on.
I'm sorry. I can only apologise.
That's cool.
But one of the things I was going to ask you is, do you think the NFL has learned from the Colin Kaepernick situation and all the political unrest that followed that, in terms of the pressure that was put on the owners by the president at the time to kind of really make that a divisive issue?
All you got to do is look at the NFL now. They allow people's voices to be heard. So the Colin Kaepernick issue and what he stood for allowed that to happen. When I played, I was never able to put something on the back of my helmet on something I stood for. I didn't even, that wasn't an option. Now it is. It's embraced. Whatever you are trying, whatever your cause is, whatever your belief, you're able to discuss it. You're able to articulate it. No one is telling you that you can't do that. So the NFL has got behind that. It's got behind its players, and it knew it had to. If this is a partnership like we are told it is, this is what needed to happen. And it is. And it has, and it will continue.
And how does it make you feel as an American to see, for example, like Premier League footballers still taking the knee, and seeing that kind of message spreading across different sports, being that the NFL's kind of led where a lot of other sports have gone on and taken a lead from?
Yeah, I'm proud of what Colin has done and how that's influenced everywhere, every sport. I mean, being here, the one thing I'm very aware of is that I'm always catching up in my understanding of sport out here. And I'm very cognizant of that. And I'm very humble in how I think about things. Like, I don't have the answers, and I don't truly understand the historical relevance of some things with some teams. But I do like the influence Colin Kaepernick has had on the players and allowed them to use their voice however they want to and whatever gesture they want to take. I mean, it's all about empowering athletes everywhere. I think athletes have always been told to be silent. And when we do speak up, people like to challenge us and make sure we have the answers. Because if they challenge us with coming up with the answer, maybe we won't say anything. Maybe we'll hesitate, but that's over. I mean, athletes everywhere need to understand that we have a platform. Use it, speak up, and then point people to the direction of a solution. Let's have the conversations. Let's figure this out. I don't have to have the solution. I'm just bringing it up so now it can become a conversation. And I think athletes, everybody, everywhere with a voice needs to be empowered to do that.
And just to bring it a bit back to yourself as well, how did you go about going from sport to being so successful in business? Were the things that you were able to draw upon in your career that were really helpful for you when you made that transition? Were the contacts that you had, or was it something within you that really helped you make that into a success?
Yeah, so back to what we talked about earlier, when I got hurt in college, I knew I probably might, my whole destiny at that point was NFL. That was what I was trying to pursue. But at the time, I thought, might not play again. What am I into? What do I want to do? And I remember walking through the student union kind of center of college, and I looked at a financial magazine, and I'm taking all these high level classes, and I'm thinking, what is this? I can't read anything in here. And at that point in time, I was like, when I'm done, I want to be involved in finance in some capacity. So when I got into NFL, what I realized was all of these players, all of my teammates, they had all kind of stuff going on. And there was this disconnect in how the financial professionals in their lives were speaking to them, educating them, really letting them understand what their business was and how it impacted everything in their life. So I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I spent the rest of my time while I was playing, pursuing that, understanding I wanted to do that when I retired. So I was kind of networking with firms and figuring out how I wanted to do it, getting ready to take all the exams and stuff like that while I was playing. So as soon as I got hurt, I was just ready to go. And the advantage I had, even though I hadn't been in finance for a long time, is I understood the end user. I understood the customer, which was my peers. And I knew what their issues were. I knew what they needed and how they needed to be addressed. So I just went out and attacked with that in mind.
And how did you get to a position where you then became a broadcaster?
I don't even know if I'm a broadcaster now. I'm in shock. I have no clue. This was not in the cards. I actually, throughout my whole career, I shied away from any of this stuff. I'd love to have fun with my friends, and I was social, but this kind of stuff I completely avoided. I never wanted to be in front of the camera, never found it appealing, but I fell into this. I was out here. OC had just retired. He came out here to be the ambassador of the UK. Somebody actually saw me and my daughter at a pet store and was like, I think Jason Bell lives here, and reached out to me. And I thought it was, I was like, who got my number? You know, I hate putting this out there, but one of my numbers is public because I'm in finance. So they have to be able to find you. So they call, and my secretary's like, these people are calling you, this production company. Long story short, found out OC was coming out here. And I said, if OC's doing a television show, of course I'll do it with him. Like, that's my buddy. We were friends through my whole career. And I didn't even know he retired. And that's how it all started. And then once I started the show, I attacked it the same way I did the NFL, the same way I did finance. It was something new, and I wanted to get good at it. I wanted to understand it. And I just started putting in the work. I spent a lot of time trying to understand the components that it takes to make television, or to be a presenter, or a pundit, or whatever they call it. I just wanted to find out exactly what that entailed and how do you get better at it. And that's what I do every day. Every day. I mean, I wish I would have went to journalism school. I would have been smarter, and then I would have been asking somebody like me questions like you are now, but I'm not, so I'm still catching up.
I don't know, Jason. I think you're doing pretty well. One last question for me before I just go to the audience for a few different ones. I've got to ask you about the dancing. How did that come about? And also, what was it like in terms of turning up and then putting yourself on national television in something which you're learning week by week?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, man. I think I wasn't their first choice. They wanted OC, really, probably. And OC was like, you know what? Check out J Bell, talk to him. And then when I talked to the producers, I think they were like, yeah, this will be cool. Let's put him on the show. And I love the show because I watched the show. It's the first show I watched when I came to this country. But as soon as I was signed up for it, I thought, what am I doing? Like, why did I just sign up for this? This is crazy. Like, I don't need this stress. But I'll tell you this, it was because of that, I learned so much about myself, or confirmed a lot. I think you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to challenge yourself on exactly who you are and how you think you behave. Football provided that, but I retired in 2007, 2008. I haven't really been in that kind of situation where that pressure has been on me, where I had to say, who are you? You know, what kind of person are you when you face true adversity? And that's what Strictly did for me. Every week, trying to figure it out, trying to go out there and learn a new skill. And then you go out there and they say X amount of million people are watching. You're just thinking, oh, no. So every week, I just tried to be in the moment like I did when I played. I literally blocked out everything and just locked in to however long I was on that stage. And I always thought, regardless of what happens, I need to be locked in this moment because I can never get it back. And it really, after the show, it helped me in my life because I took that and how I applied everything, you know, talking to people in conversations, like literally being engaged because I can't get this back. And the Strictly experience brought that to life.
We've just got one question on here, and then we'll take some from in the room that's coming online. So how did you find making the switch to presenting, and what are the highs and lows of doing that job?
It's nerve-wracking. Presenting is hard, especially when you don't know what that entails. Like I had no background in it. The one thing that really helped is the people involved with my growth in the early stages. I had really good people that gave really good advice. Very lucky to be working with OC because he was amazing for my confidence, and having somebody, a teammate there that you could lean on was very important. But I had to figure out something I had done in the past that could equate to what I was doing in the presenting role. And I remembered, and I always kept thinking, I have to sit in front of people and talk about something very uncomfortable. That's money, finances. And if I can do that, I can sit on stage and talk about sports or whatever else it is. So I kept trying to tell myself that. But always watching and learning from other people too, seeing people and seeing what they do well, asking them questions about their process and taking those and using the things that they do that work for me.
Hi, Jason. It's Mark. We met in London a few weeks ago. My question to you is, with regards to being in journalism now, and how useful is your knowledge within the sport as you go into be in the podcast with OC, or being on Sky Sports, which I recently saw you on last week, or the BBC? How useful and valuable is that?
It's very valuable because it gives you shortcuts. You still have to put in the work. Like, you still have to spend a lot of time understanding what's happening. But what I do have is all of this knowledge that allows me to kind of catch up to a concept of what's happening quicker than most people. It's just experience. So whatever you have experience with, that's what it gives you. You still have to do the work, but yet, in the middle of a live game or something like that, I can see something and point it out quickly just because I've done it and seen it so many times. So it just gives you shortcuts.
Hi, Jason. I just wanted to ask what more you think can be done for players who don't make the cut in the NFL in terms of fallback measures.
Wow, I mean, fallback measures are really on you because they exist. If you don't make it, and first thing, you've had an opportunity to get an education. And that's the main thing. That's what you're trying to do. And if you don't make it immediately, it's actually easier because you start to go onto your next career with your peer group. The hardest thing about retiring in the NFL is when you retire into another industry, you're doing it and your peers have already exceeded and excelled past the point where you start. That's hard. So I think being aware it's very hard to make it to the NFL and having something you feel passionate about that you're pursuing at the same time you're playing college football or in your first early years in the NFL. Because you're going to meet so many people and have so many opportunities that once you can really articulate and guide people in where you want to go, most of the time they're willing to help.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. It's been really interesting listening to what you've had to say. I've got a couple of questions. Yourself and OC, how much pride do you take in sort of the growth of the game in this country and your role in that? And I guess, do you have any visions for how you'd like to see that continue? Because obviously you're kind of front and centre of a lot of that with the coverage on the BBC and with Sky. And then the second cheeky question, who's going to win the Super Bowl this year?
Okay, so as far as the Super Bowl, I don't know. There's no way I know. I mean, it's. I thought I knew last week, let's be honest. And now I don't know anything. And that's what I love about this game. I would not be surprised if Tom Brady was back, but we'll just leave it as that. But, as far as the growth of the game and what's happening out here, I couldn't imagine doing this anywhere else. And that's really, I never thought I'd say that, but I would not want to represent the NFL anywhere but here. I feel like what's happening here, the growth of the game and being a part of it is such a unique experience. I belong here. I belong with this fan base. It's very important for me to show that I am a part of this culture in the NFL in this country. I'm not in and out. I'm not part-time. I am here because if we're asking the NFL community for this country to embrace us, well, I better embrace this country and I better be here full-time for that and to see that growth happen. So it's just, I take a lot of pride in everything that the NFL does out here because I know it's so important and so unique. And this will be a huge point in the history of the NFL in this country, what we're doing these last 10 years or so.
Hi, Jason. I just wanted to ask, with the NFL just growing in terms of how big it is around the world, where do you see it going in the next 5 years, 10 years or so?
Wow. Well, you see it going to Germany next. They're going to start playing games there. Obviously, they're always going to have a presence in Mexico. They're going to play in Mexico City still. I just see it going anywhere where there's an appetite. They are pursuing any and everywhere where people want the games. They want the experience. So it's going to have to go global. I see eventually with the new with the extra game that we have now, every team is committed to play outside of the country over the next 10 years. So these games will go everywhere. So the NFL will go where the appetite exists. So I could see it everywhere, but Germany up next.
Hi, Jason. So I've got a question about, as a broadcaster, as a pundit, as a journalist, how you both develop your skills and your profile. So one of the earlier questions mentioned the podcast you do with OC. I'm wondering how you see that as important. So journalism and media students here, that's something they can more likely do is to do a podcast on their area of expertise to raise their profile. So how important is that for you, or other opportunities?
Yeah, I love podcasting. It gives a long format to kind of flush out your ideas. I think people don't do that enough, and that's probably the problem. So I love that. It also gives you an opportunity to work on your skills and how you present your thoughts and how you engage with other people. I think one of the main things I've learned is I said this earlier about being in the moment, and it's so true. I don't really, I don't have a journalism background, so I have nothing to lean on, but I see a lot of mistakes where I feel like people aren't listening. Like I hear interviews and I hear people do things and they're just getting to questions or an agenda and they're not listening. And I look at everything I do and I'm truly engaged in that conversation and I'm truly interested in what they're saying. I really am. And because of that, there's usually a great conversation because they can feel it, I can feel it, and the dialogue is better. And I just feel like that's missed a lot because people are going through a checklist instead of just going with the flow. And the best people I've been around in this industry that I learned from, that I watched, that I enjoy, it just seems so natural and so fluid because they're actually listening to the person they're talking to. There's a lot of power in asking questions. And I think you need a diverse group of people that ask questions and how they ask questions, because that is the power in journalism, in my humble opinion, is engaging in whoever the conversation is had with, being present, and different viewpoints of how you ask questions.
Hi, Jason. Just want to ask, who is the best NFL player you've ever played with, and who's your favorite of all time other than Tom Brady?
Oh, he's not my favorite of all time. You just try to put that. You just try to put words in my mouth. That was slick. That almost got me too. You almost got me. Favorite all-time player is Deion Sanders. I mean, hands down. For me, the favorite player I've ever played with. That's really tough. That is tough. I would say it's a couple. It's Aaron Glenn, who's coaching in Detroit now. Good man. Darren Woodson, like I said before, and Michael Strahan and OC. I mean, each team has a person. You can't just – if you play at one team, you can say that. But for me, each team had an individual, and it wasn't what they did on the field. Like, I'll give you Michael Strahan, one of the best players ever, Hall of Famer on every television show in America. He was our leader, but I watched him sit in the locker room, and he talked to a guy for 30, 40 minutes who wasn't going to make the team. He just talked to him. You don't see that. You don't see that out of certain players, certain stars. I mean, this guy just cared. And that's something I will never forget about him. Not the plays he made on the field, but how he acted and treated people off the field. And all those people I just mentioned, they really treated people well everywhere. And that's what's important. They were just good human beings.
Hi, Jason. I just wanted to say that I thought you were great on Strictly and that you shouldn't have left too soon.
Did you vote for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. You and my daughter.
I just wanted to ask, what was your favorite highlight from being on Strictly?
Oh, it was definitely the salsa I did. I mean, When I'm telling you right now, when it was over, Luba and I looked at each other and we had nothing. We were empty. Like, I had nothing in my soul, in my body, anything. It took it all out of me. And I remember looking at her, and now I'm going to give this all away. I've never said this before because it's live. I looked at her, and when you get, you could get voted off and all that stuff. I said, Luba, I can't do this dance again. I said, there's no chance. It's just that it's gone. It's out because it was that hard. And it's one of those things where I look at it and I laugh to myself. But whenever I think something's hard or I got a lot going on, I think of that salsa and I'm like, nah, I can do it. I can do it. The salsa didn't kill me. I can go do this. So. And they made me wear yellow. I had yellow on. That was embarrassing. To be honest.
Hi, Jason. I've got a two-part question here. Obviously, you say you talk about the NFL coming to the UK. I mean, how would, as a podcaster and broadcaster, how would you sell it to someone as a novice who's never watched the sport or played the sport? How would you sell it? And also, during your career, was there a particular team that you would look at the beginning of the season and think, right, I want to beat these out of any other team in the league?
So how would I sell it? I would sell it like this. I would say, listen, do you want to see the best athletes in the world? All different shapes, sizes, skills, techniques, run around fast, high impact, high entertainment, nonstop action all day. You would probably say yes. And I would say, welcome to the NFL. And then you would watch the game. That's how I would sell it. Because it's a unique experience. I mean, there's nothing like what in sports what the NFL has to offer. When you look at all these other sports, where do you see a 6'6", 370-pound person, convert that, by the way, because I don't know how to do that for you, convert the pounds, person with a guy my size on the same field? You don't see it in any other sport. And there's a guy who can throw, there's a guy who can kick, there's a guy who can block, there's a guy who can tackle, and that's his skill set, all on the same field. It doesn't happen. It's no other sport has that. And that's what makes it so special and unique, because it's the land of giants. And when you're in there, all these different people, all these different personalities on the field, it just makes magic. And the second question was, I forgot.
Who would you like to beat at the beginning of any team in the league?
Who would you like?
It's always whoever your rival is. Doesn't matter. Like, whatever team you're on, you figure out quickly who that rival is, and it's them. And it's because when you play in the game, it is so physical. Like, when you play your rival, all of a sudden you're in a game and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a physical fight. Like, it's different. So it's always them. When I was in Houston, we didn't like Jacksonville. I don't know how it happened. We were a new team. We didn't have no reason not to like anybody, but it was Jacksonville. In Dallas, it was definitely Philly. Philly, the Giants. It just was. We hated each other. In New York, and it was Philly again. The game was just different. I don't care what was happening. When you got into that week, you just knew it was going to be a battle. So, whoever your rival is, you find out how to hate them really quickly.
Jason, I'm really, really sorry, but I'm going to have to bring this to a close. You've had everybody in the palm of your hand for the last 45 minutes. They've really, really engaged with everything you've been saying.
They can't go anywhere. They got to stay there. What do you mean? They haven't got a choice.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I reckon we could probably do another 3 hours. It wouldn't be a problem at all. But it's been fantastic to hear from you. I can tell by, like I say, everybody in here, they've really appreciated you coming and speaking to us. So from everybody at Journalism Media Week, please can you show your appreciation to Jason Bell.
Well, thank you so much. That's amazing. There's a lot of people back there.
There is a lot of people in here. Yeah, you filled the room.
Oh man, now I'm getting nervous. I'm glad it's over.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. Really appreciated it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone. And you know what? Journalism is so important. It's so special, especially the climate we live in. Go out there, make sure you're getting the right narratives out there. You can change the world. Seriously.
Some great words to finish. Thank you very much.
All right, cool.